Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our beautiful Eddy County Courthouse lawn. We're here today with another guest on our program that we call The Faces of Carlsbad, and we're sponsored by Intrepid Potash, and this, of course, is the famous Channel 23. But as you look around this beautiful area, you'll see a beautiful building behind us. That's our courthouse. The beautiful trees, the flowers, and out of the flowers come these wonderful guests that we introduce to you on 23. And today we have another very lovely young lady, Miss Abigail Buckholtz. Abigail, welcome to Channel 23.
Thank you.
And what we're going to do on this show, and you probably don't know too much about what we do on The Faces of Carlsbad.
I watch it.
Oh, you watch it?
Yeah.
Oh, very good. That's wonderful. So we're going to find out a little bit about where your grandparents were born, and then we're going to come into where your mom and dad came from, etc. So fill us in. I'm always interested in that.
Well, I have two sets of grandparents because I have two parents. And my father's side, my father grew up in Michigan, and my grandparents were immigrants. So
they came from what country? Do you
they came, I think they were Polish.
Polish.
So we have Polish food at Thanksgiving, which is
you have Polish food,
which is quite good.
Yeah.
And then my mother's parents came from England, and my grandparents on my mother's side still live in England. But my mom...
Wait a minute. Your mother came from England?
Yes.
Oh, I know another person in this city who came from England.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
His name is Guy, I believe. Yeah, right. Oh, that's fantastic. And your grandparents still live in England?
My grandparents still do. They're in their early 90s, and they're still living in their own house, and we visit them every summer. And so that's nice.
Where do they live in England?
On the Isle of Wight.
Oh, the Isle of Wight.
It's at the bottom.
Yeah,
it's a little island.
Off of Cornwall.
Yeah.
Yeah, dark Devonshire in that area. Well, that's wonderful. And you fly over there, I trust, and then you take a train down?
It's a very, very long process because we fly out of Dallas. So we go to Dallas, we take the plane over there, we have to drive down to the ferry, and then we have to take a ferry, and then we have to rent a car to get to my grandparents' house on the island.
Oh my goodness. Well, that's got to be exciting.
It's very nice. It's the other place besides Carlsbad that I go there, and there's a chain of grocery stores that's called Morrison's, and it's the only other grocery store I think in the world that I can go into and know where everything is. It's like I know Albertsons and I know Morrison's.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. So you go over there every year, every summer.
Yes.
And the mother and daddy, where did they meet?
My parents met in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. It's around Miami, and that's where I was born. And they met because my mom was an actress, and it was a two-person play, and the original director dropped out. And so they asked my father to come in. And so they worked together on the play, and that gave them enough time to get to know each other, but then it was a very interesting play because some things went wrong and they had to recast the other character. It's a two-person play, and so they had to recast the man who was against my mother because he had some mental problems by the end of it. And so they worked together on that, and then they went to England, and yeah, and so now they're married. And
they got married were they married in England?
They were married in England. They did the courthousey thing in America, but they were married in a small church that is on the Isle of Wight where my mom grew up. And so they were. It's called Bond Church. It's very pretty. It's small, and it was a very small ceremony.
How many people approximately? How many people live on the Isle of Wight?
I'm not sure. There are so many different areas of the island that I have not seen a statistic on one particular spot.
Yeah. Well, that's fantastic, though, because this is the first time I've ever met anybody who had originally, your grandparents, live on the Isle of Wight.
Yes.
That's amazing. So anyway, and your parents met in Fort Lauderdale. That's
Yes.
interesting because I recently took a ship out of Fort Lauderdale, Port Everglades or whatever they call it now. But anyway, it's a very beautiful area.
I don't remember it. I moved here when I was 2, and we haven't visited it since. So I believe everyone that it's a very nice place to have been born, but I haven't. I don't remember it.
It's a beautiful city. You're going to have to tell Dad and Mom, hey, I want to see where I was born, you know, in Fort Lauderdale.
Eventually,
Yeah, right.
it will happen.
So, did your mother ever miss England?
Well, yes, she still feels like her heart is in England, but she had such a long time between England and America because she lived on boats for, I think, about 10 years.
Yeah.
And so she was gone, but it was just kind of in nomad's land instead of actually moving to America. When she finally moved to America, then there was like an obvious, I'm no longer living in England. Before it was just, I live on boats, I'm in the Caribbean, and
well, that's interesting. So you grew up in Carlsbad?
yeah, we moved here when I was 2, and I've been here ever since, so.
Well, tell us as the years went by what you were interested in, gradually expanding your production into the theater.
Well, when I was about to turn 6, I started taking piano lessons with my piano teacher for the last, since I was 6, Mrs. Brashear. And so I started with her, and it was just the simple little piano things where it's one hand and it's just flunking out notes. And I've done that all the way through to this point. And then I started taking voice lessons when I was in 6th grade. So that would be...
Who was your voice teacher?
Also Mrs. Brashear.
Oh, I see.
Mrs. Brashear has been
She's
my...
a very talented lady.
Yes.
Yeah.
She's been my private coach since I was very, very little. I've been with her for a very long time. And then in middle school was when I started choir, and that was with Mrs. Servold. And
yes.
she was hardcore on drilling sight reading and how to sight read, and we kind of give her credit for this senior class for knowing how to sight read, because if you did not know how to sight read, you were not going to do well in choir. Because
tell us, for those of us who aren't up on sight reading, tell us about that. What is it?
It is where you get a sheet of music, and for a choral sight reading, you have 4-part harmony, usually. And you just look at the notes, and you get your starting pitch, and you have to sing what it says on the page.
What that particular note, where it's located.
Right. You have, a lot of times you just get the first note, there's no piano accompaniment, there's no anything that can give you any hint besides what's going on in your head. So it's just like looking at a storybook, and when you see the word "the," you know that "the" makes that noise.
Yeah, right.
So, and it's a very important part of music, and it really helped the high school choir that I was in, and that's directed by Mr. Ken Miller. And
he's very good.
Yes, and we just won the state choir contest this last year, and we were all very, very happy because we have been working for it for a very long time.
That's amazing. That's amazing. You got to be proud of those things that have been accomplished.
Yes, it's. And then in high school was when I started taking drama, and that was under the direction of Mrs. Bemis.
Another terrific lady.
Yes, and so she taught us a lot, because at the beginning it wasn't that you were in plays, you just did little skits, and it was, you'd have groups of 3 people, and one person would be the director and the other 2 would be actors, or you'd have to make something up, or you'd have to adapt a chapter from a storybook to something on the stage, and it really made you be creative, and it really made you understand what theater was about. And she really made a lot of people love theater.
Well, that's wonderful. And you have a love of theater.
I have a love of
Yeah,
theater.
we're going to get onto that in a little bit. But what other things do you like to do?
Well, music is a major part of my life, and theater, and since at school I don't have a lot of time, so most of the stuff that I do during school is the extracurricular stuff. So it's either classwork or homework or music-y theater things. But when I'm not doing anything, I sometimes make piano arrangements. The computer is a very nice place to be. Facebook, just.
So you like that stuff, huh? Facebook.
I like Facebook because it tells you what's going on with people in a nice way, where it's, if they want to tell you, they tell you, and if they don't want you to know, they just don't tell you. It's very non-intrusive, and yes.
Well, see, I don't have anything to do with the internet, so I stay away from all of that. That's something. So anyway, you got involved in the theater in high school. What were some of the plays you were in?
The very first play that we did was my Theater 2 play, and that was Aladdin, and I was the director of that.
Uh-huh.
And that play really brought my theater class together, because up until that point, we hadn't worked collectively as a team, and since theater is such a team effort, it's important to start working as a team. Up until that point, we were doing the class splits up, and there's 3 or 4 scenes that we're doing, and you have the groups that are friends that always are together and always doing the things together. But when Aladdin came around, we all started saying, well, I want to direct, I want to stage manage, I want to act, and so we were all having to work together, and it really made my theater family, and I have some really close friends from theater. My stage manager from Aladdin, I'm friends with her because I was in Aladdin with her, and we can work together, which is quite impressive.
So what other plays were you in?
Let's see. So that was the sophomore year play. Junior year was... Oh, okay. We just finished Seussical the Musical, and I played Gertrude in that.
Oh, yeah, I see.
And that was a pretty big production. It was the choir program and the theater program working together.
Did Dad direct that?
Yes.
Yeah, I heard rumors that he was a good director.
My parents directed that. Yes, it was the first musical, I think, that my dad directed, but he met my mother directing, and he went to the Yale School of Drama. So
Oh, he did?
Yeah.
Oh.
So he has experience in it. It was interesting because it was a high school level musical.
Oh,
so there's always
That's
new
fantastic.
stuff.
That's fantastic. So both your parents are involved technically in the theater?
Yes.
In one way or another?
Yes.
And does Mom take part in any plays anymore?
Not really, because she has to take care of me. So I feel like when I go off to college, she's gonna start auditioning for the community theater and doing more things like that. But
yeah, well, your parents are so nice to be around. They're always so respectful.
Thank you.
And you can't be nice to all directors, you know that. I have a reputation of being a grouchy director, so even my wife stays away from me. But anyway, now recently I understand you've been contacted to be in a play here in the theater.
Yes, I am right now in Fiddler on the Roof, which is performing right now,
at the Carlsbad Community Theater,
Community
yeah. And I understand it's on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday of this week and next week.
Yes.
And the interesting thing about that play is that it's a very, very interesting story. It's a story about what?
It's a story about the Jewish community in a quite traditional sense, and they are, it's still in the age where there are matchmakers, and so people can't decide who they want to be married to. Yeah. They can't make those decisions for themselves, and it's kind of pushing the boundaries for them when the various children say, no, I love this person, I'm going to marry them. And the first one, the oldest daughter says this, and it's just saying, I really want to marry the person I love, which is quite reasonable, and then gradually it's that I'm Huddle and I'm the second oldest, and my character wants to marry someone who everyone considers a radical because he believes that traditions need to change sometimes.
Right.
And then the next youngest daughter is wanting to be married to a Russian, and
he's not Jewish.
And he's not Jewish,
Yeah.
and so the parents have so much of an issue with it that they pretty much disown her, and it's just so sad because that's such a hard thing.
The mother is all right. She realizes
Yes.
what she's losing, but father is still that Jewish bullheadedness, the head of the family, and
Yeah.
I'm not going to forgive her.
By that point in the play, he's feeling like he's losing his masculinity
Yes.
because he keeps being told by these women what to do, and he's just like, no, I'm going to do what I want right now. But yeah.
Well, that's interesting. And so you're the one that you are in love with. He is also Jewish, though, isn't he?
Yes, he's Jewish, but he's a radical, and he is sent off to Siberia because he's
Right.
He's a radical, so he's trying to change things. And
This was in the time of the Tsars, correct?
yes,
And they were, the Tsarist regime was basically angry with so many different people, especially the Jewish people. And this was a good man to get rid of, so they sent him to Siberia where they put all their prisoners.
right.
But you, in your part, you don't want to leave your husband, so you went
So
with
I
him.
go to Siberia.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is, again, really scary for a woman to be making that decision
Oh,
at that point
yeah.
in time.
Now the question is, in real life, would you make that decision?
I don't think so. I don't know.
It's hard to say, isn't it? Okay, and this play is a very beautifully done play. I saw it. And you know, our cameraman, did you know our cameraman was in the original movie?
Yes, I was trying to learn my songs really quickly when I got back from England, and so I was watching the movie and I knew that he was in there, and when it got to the scene where they're celebrating, I was calling my parents over and saying, okay, you need to point out which one he is. And it was always we'd have to stop it, and the second we stopped it, he'd just go behind some guy with a hat.
Yeah.
Every single time he stood behind some guy with a hat. But yeah, that's cool that he was in
Well,
that.
now that he always jumps behind a camera now, so
Yes.
he's used to jumping behind things. Yeah, that was the play is outstanding,
Thank
and the
you.
music is wonderful. And I kidded the gentleman who plays the fiddler, and I said, terrific role he put in there. He was always playing that violin at the right spot.
Yeah.
But and the orchestration out here at the theater is very, very good too.
Yes.
How long did it take most of the cast to learn their parts in this? Because it had to be quite difficult.
Well, I came into it quite late in the rehearsal process because I was in England for the beginning. I was there for the auditions, but I wasn't there until about 3 weeks into it.
Mm-hmm.
And when I came back, Jenny had her lines pretty much memorized, and Casey Gadbury had the majority of his, but has so many lines that
gosh.
he had almost the entire first act memorized, I think, by that point. And there were some others that were trying to do it off book, and it was quite good, but it was up to the edge. About a week before performances,
Mm-hmm.
the person who was supposed to play my love interest didn't come back from his vacation, and
Oh,
so we thought that he was going to come back and be Perchik, and we thought, oh well, that'll be fine. We hope he'll learn his lines,
Yeah,
and that. And then we find out he's not, and so we go into panic mode, and then just one day, it was on Friday the 13th,
Oh my.
and Tyler comes in, and
Now Tyler's the new young
Tyler
man.
is Perchik, and he is a drama major, and it was very nice that he came to the show when he did.
That's amazing that on the 13th of the month, which a lot of people consider unlucky, I don't, but a lot of people do, this man shows up.
Yes, it was a very, very nice coincidence because even the story about how he turned up was that he just wanted, he was a drama major, so he came to the theater just to see what was going on there.
Yeah.
And Ellen says, "Do you want a part?" And sure, he has nothing, he didn't want to do anything else, so he said sure. And so then he's in from out of town, and he has a part in the musical.
And
so,
he did such a remarkable job. I was really amazed.
Yeah.
My goodness. I mean, we're talking about 6 days later, he's got to learn all of his lines in the...
Within 2 days, the first scene that I had with him was perfectly memorized. And then within the next 2 days, the second scene was perfectly memorized. And then within the next 2 days, the second scene was forgotten. But I think he just psyched himself out because it was quite funny.
Yeah. That happens.
But he has it now, and it's very good. And for a week, it's amazing because he brought so much to that character, and everyone has their lines now. It's very good.
And this perfect gentleman we're talking about, he's planning to go to New York,
Yes.
I understand, to see if he can get involved in the theater.
It's part of he gets to go see 3 Broadway shows, 4 Broadway shows, I think, and talk to the cast. And I think it's an acting workshop, and
that's fantastic.
he has to get accepted to go to it in the first place.
Well, I wish him luck. Well, what does Abigail do other than singing, acting, helping mom and dad? What other hobbies do you have?
Well, I have friends, and I spend time with them a lot. And just this morning, I finished volunteering at the Living Desert.
Oh yeah, tell us a little bit about that. How did you get involved in that?
Well, I've been going to the Living Desert ever since I was really little. I went for preschool story time. And after I graduated from preschool story time, there's this thing called zoo camp. And you go for 4 hours in the morning, and they teach you about the animals in the zoo and just science, what a carnivore is, just the simple stuff that is important to know about science. And you get to see the animals, and you walk around and you do a craft, and there are songs. And so I went to zoo camp until the 6th grade when I became a junior docent, which are all the people who help them with zoo camp. And I've been a junior docent up until this point.
Oh my gosh.
And I was a junior docent. This was the final day of my junior docenting. And I was part of the blue group, which was the oldest group of both weeks. The first week is from 5 to about 10-year-olds. I had one 11-year-old, but it's supposed to be 5 to 9, a couple 10s and 11.
Oh yeah.
And the second week is from about 9 to 12. And after 12, you get bumped into a junior docent if you want to continue going to zoo camp. So I've just been going to the Living Desert my entire life, and then I've done some face painting with the theater there. I've done some other volunteer work there.
Were you ever allowed to go in with the animals themselves?
No, because most of the animals, even if you were a zookeeper, you can't go into because they're carnivorous and you don't want to. The closest that we've gotten to being like behind the scenes was a couple years ago when Maggie was still a little bear. She was not in an exhibit yet because they have to be in quarantine before they can get all their shots, I think, and they have to be ready to be put on exhibit.
Right.
And we got to see her before she was out there when she was in the back, and I think she started painting by that point, and so there was some paint stuff around, and that was really cool because none of us had seen the new bear yet. And I think that was 2 years ago.
How's she doing now?
She's big. I mean, for a female, for a young female, I think she's big. Bears are big. So.
Yeah, well, they are. And does she seem to be friendly, though, in a way?
She does. She seems to be really silly. When it's not too hot, at least this week, when we were walking around and we pass her, she would come out of her little cave that's in the shade, and then she'd just sit like this, and it was just so funny because it was like she wanted to just make us laugh because she would walk around and do silly poses.
That's funny. So what about the snakes up there? Have you ever managed to hold any of them?
I haven't held a snake, but the very first time, I think, that we went to the Living Desert as a family, we were walking and there was a snake on the middle of the path. And so, I don't remember this, but I have stories of this from my parents. And I've held snakes at other places, but I don't think they do that as much.
Especially rattlesnakes. We don't want to get too close to them. Although I don't want to hurt them. It's their lifestyle, it's their area. But in all the years I've been out here, I've only heard one rattlesnake where he was hiding underneath some rocks, giving me the warning sign, and then a small snake, very young rattlesnake, that somebody wanted to kill. I said, no, let it go. It's all right, it's not bothering us. And I just don't like to see animals hurt.
Yeah.
And that's why you probably feel the same way working with the zoo animals up there and all the kids. And that's a nice program, isn't it?
It really is. The kids seem to have a really good time, and it's educational because I was learning things, and I know science, and I consider myself very scientific for just graduating from high school.
That's good.
And I was learning things. I was learning about what the names of how the different creatures walk, like plantigrade we are plantigrades. I think that's, and the word crepuscular. I didn't know that word before zoo camp.
Crepuscular.
5-year-olds now know this word, and I didn't learn it until I graduated from high school. So zoo camp
for our listeners, what does it mean?
Oh, crepuscular means that an animal comes out at dawn or dusk. So it's like nocturnal or diurnal. Crepuscular is between the two.
Oh,
yes.
Well, now see, they've learned something on this. They can't say that they don't learn anything from Channel 23, can they? So what's in the future now for
I am
Abigail?
Going to college in upstate New York at
what university?
University of Rochester.
Okay.
And after a very long choosing period of what colleges to apply for, and then after I found out where I got in, we went to New York and Philadelphia because that's where they were, and we did a whirlwind trip. It was over the Easter break, so it was 4 days. I missed 1 day of school, and it was 4 days of just driving around New York, going to the various colleges. And
why did you pick Rochester University?
Well,
curious.
It has a lot of things going for it for me. I want to study the brain and cognitive sciences, and it has a very strong program in that. And so that was one of the reasons why I applied in the first place. But then after I was accepted and I was looking at it and I was trying to decide which college to go to, they are connected to the Eastman School of Music, which is a very highly rated music school. And if you're going to University of Rochester, you can audition for music lessons, for free music lessons, and you can take classes there. And it just seemed, I would be going to an engineering, sciencey school that has an incredibly close connection to music and the things that I don't want to stop being a part of my life.
Right.
And so that made a lot of sense. And then when I visited there, it just felt right.
You liked it?
It was the most colorful of all of them. And I know you shouldn't base the next 4 years of your life on color, but there is a feeling to different buildings. And some of the other colleges I went and I thought, everyone feels so stressed and scared, and this was a very academic school, but everyone just seemed like, you know what, I'm studying, but I'm happy, I'm good. And they have this room that has all the flags of all the different countries that people have come from to go to University of Rochester, and so that's incredibly colorful. And it's since it snows so much, they have the same room has windows on the ceiling, and it was designed by the same guy who designed the pyramids over the Louvre.
In Paris.
Yeah, in Paris. And so that was really interesting. And when I visited University of Rochester, it was on Easter. It was on Easter Sunday. And nothing was open. And we were thinking, I'm not going to get a very good feel of the college. Like, this is really a shame that we're going when it's almost completely closed. And so we get into one part of the school, and we start walking, and to get to the next building, we leave at the other end of the building, and there are these two girls who are putting out Easter eggs, and we just ask, can you show us where the dorms are, so that maybe, and then they said, oh, well, yeah, we could let you in, and then they said, you know, we could just take you around. So we got a free tour for about 3 hours by two students, one of which was a brain and cognitive science major. And so I got all of her experiences. She's working at the, there's a hospital there. And so she's, as a freshman, she has a job at a hospital in the department that she wants to be in.
That's fantastic.
And it's a research university, and it does have a graduate school, but there are more undergraduate students. And so the graduate school brings in kind of the good research, but because it's such a small school, it has about 5,000 undergraduates and 4,000, a little under 4,000 graduate students. You have the good research that's going on from the graduate students, and then you get to be a part of it because of it just seemed it was the right size school for the amount of opportunities that I wanted, because it wasn't so small that it took away opportunities, but it wasn't so
huge,
big that it was just you had to, you know, scratch and bite to get anything.
That's fantastic. So you're going to go up there in September?
I move in on August 23rd.
August 23rd.
And I don't know how I'm getting up there, if I'm driving or if we're flying or how we're doing it, because I only found out about my roommate yesterday, and so I don't know if I have to take a plasma screen TV or if hopefully she decides that because she lives a lot closer, hopefully she decides that she would like to bring the refrigerator and would like to bring all the really heavy things.
That's great. Let me ask you one last question here before our time runs out. Where is she from?
She's from Ohio, I think.
My home state. Oh my goodness.
I think it's a suburb of Cleveland.
Yeah. I was 35 miles south of Cleveland. Yeah. You're going to have to ask her where. Tell her that you talked to a guy who was just 12 miles from Akron and 35 miles south of Cleveland.
Okay.
And she'll say, who's that? Oh, some guy I met out there in Carlsbad somewhere. Well, I tell you, well, we only have about a minute left, but I do want to really say that I really appreciate you doing this, because I know you're a very busy young lady, and I'm sure Mom and Dad are going to follow your career very, very carefully, and I'm going to have to ask them to keep me updated, with your permission, of course. But you're a very talented young lady.
Thank you.
You have a beautiful voice, and I just wish Guy could sing as well as that. I mean, it's unbelievable. We'll have to work on that, won't we? So anyway, Fiddler on the Roof.
Yes.
As long as you live, you can always say, I was with a man who was in that movie.
Yes.
Isn't that wonderful?
It's very cool.
Yeah. Oh, I think it's wonderful.
People keep...
You heard that? That came all the way from Moscow. My golly.
People keep asking me if he's in Fiddler, and a couple of the cast members didn't know he was in the movie, and so they were like, why do they keep asking if he's in Fiddler? And it's, well, because he was in the movie. Oh, yes, of course.
Yeah, they finally got it, didn't they? Oh, that's interesting. So anyway, you're going to have a very, very interesting couple of years ahead of you.
Yes.
And the University of Rochester is very lucky to have you as a student.
Thank you.
And I'm very glad to hear about that. So, anyway, on behalf of Channel 23, all I can say is that we all wish you the very best of luck.
Thank you.
You know that. You take good care of yourself. Keep us informed. Always keep us informed, because we want to know where some of our great students are headed. And you're the first one I've ever met from the University of Rochester. But I've heard good things about Rochester in the past.
Good.
Okay? Well, you take good care of yourself. And as they say in the theater, break a leg.
Thank you.
Okay? Well, on behalf of Channel 23, Intrepid Potash, and our wonderful guest, we want to wish you all a very, very delightful evening. And we look forward to seeing you on Channel 23 in the near future. Goodbye and good luck.
Amazing.